I knew that the day was going to be a difficult one and had tried to plan accordingly by scheduling as much as possible to keep myself from thinking too much. After a teeth cleaning at the dentist and a trim at the salon, I found myself back at the house for a couple of hours before a yoga class. It was the third anniversary of my trip to Australia, and though I reflected on it often, today especially I was flooded with memories. Originally planning to stay for 2 weeks, the trip had stretched into almost 2 months after unexpected circumstances. I had met Derek. We jokingly acknowledged that it's cliche, but he had been the tour guide on a day-long boat trip I'd taken with my friend, and afterwards the three of us had gone to a bar. Derek and I clicked immediately. My traveling companion had returned to the States as originally planned after 2 weeks, but I hadn't wanted to leave Derek. I knew the relationship probably wouldn't last as we barely knew each other, and it would surely never survive the distance, so I also knew that the day I left Australia, it would be over. I hadn't wanted that. The end of this month would mark the third anniversary of our relationship, which had become official on his balcony, overlooking a still ocean and the darkening sky. There, we had decided to give ourselves a chance, even though we both secretly worried it wouldn't last. Thankfully, it had. Thanks to some extremely high phone bills and lots of internet messaging, Derek and I had successfully maintained a long-distance relationship for those 3 years. We'd met in New York once over Valentine's Day, and recently he'd flown to Chicago to meet my family. I stepped out of my car, parked at the curb, and slumped up the porch steps to the door. There was a package propped up in the screen door, which I took in with me and set on the counter while I greeted my dog. It was then that I noticed the return address, the listing for Derek's flat in Australia. I stepped around my excited pup and snatched the scissors up on my way to the kitchen table. Past the brown paper, the plain cardboard box was a gift box wrapped in plain blue paper. Inside, I found a can labeled Canned Koala Export Quality. I lifted it up in confusion to study it closer. The illustration of 2 koalas on the front was cheerful enough to keep the gift from feeling at all sinister. Still, it was with some apprehension that I snapped a can opener around the top and cranked the handle until the gold circle popped off. I immediately noticed a white tuft of fur and stepped back in surprise. Inside was a fluffy stuffed koala, the size of my hand, its perky white ears and round black nose giving it away. I took one of the soft gray paws in my hand and found myself laughing. Derek knew that koalas were one of my favorite animals and something I loved about my trip to Australia. I picked the gift up and hugged it to my cheek, still smiling, feeling unable now to keep the fond memories of my trip at bay and no longer wanting to. As I squeezed its plush form, I felt something hard in the middle, behind the stuffed stomach. I pulled the toy back and turned it over to find that a zipper had been sewn in. Confused, I tugged the zipper down and reached 2 fingers in to pull out the small box that had been settled in among the stuffing. It was a ring box. I caught my breath and my stomach dropped. Before even lifting the lid, my eyes were tearing up. Inside, nestled in the dark blue velvet, I was at first puzzled to find a scrap of paper pressed into the indentation where the ring should have been. I unfolded the slip. "Turn around," it read. I did, slowly and with some confusion, and I saw Derek through the window on the front door, standing just on the other side, holding an engagement ring up next to his face, grinning. My mind raced ahead to our wedding, to our new life together, to family Christmases and New Year's parties, and then to babies. To the thought of settling our new baby into a crib and pressing that stuffed koala in next to him, of telling him the story over and over, of never being away from Derek again.